Welcome, viewers, to No Hurt Mentality, a podcast. My guest today is someone who donned many hats.
And especially because I dive more around India and Southeast Asia.
For globally renowned networks like National Geographic.
But of course, if you want to be a wildlife biologist, then you should have not dropped, zoology.
Welcome, viewers, to No Hurt Mentality, a podcast that deep dives into careers to give you great insights through conversations with people who have been there and done that. My guest today is someone who donned many hats. Her passion for art and exploration has shaped her career as a creative designer and production manager at Felis Creations. Felis Creations is based in India and specializes in producing high quality wildlife and conservation documentaries for globally renowned networks like National Geographic, BBC, and Netflix, to name few. An artist, scuba and free diver, underwater photographer, and an animal welfare activist. Vydehi hopes to leave her mark on both the artistic and the environmental landscapes. So let's welcome Vydehi to our podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Ruchika. I'm glad to be here, and I thank you guys for having me on the podcast as well.
Vydehi, your body of work is so versatile, so niche because of your diverse talent and your diverse interest. So I'm really grappling with where to start our conversation from. But let me begin with your creative pursuit as a creative designer and a production manager with Felix Creations.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does a profession of a creative designer and a production manager entail?
All right. So, like you said, Felis Creation focuses on wildlife and natural history documentaries. So, when we talk about production here, it usually starts with creating the pitch, creating stories, developing stories from the natural world. So I take care of, along with our researchers and directors, we create the pitch first. And once the pitch is done and it is shown to various broadcasters or organizations that are interested, then we start developing a budget based on whether it is a short-term project or a long-term project. And after the budgeting, of course, comes all of your legal paperwork, contract with your broadcaster, contract with your team members, contract with freelance team members. And then comes the hardest part, logistics, managing the logistics for your team to go out there into the field. You have to take care of everything that they will need out there when they're there. So preparations for all the accommodations, all the transport, and safety, of course. So all of that has to be done. And once that part of my job is done, I move on to the creative aspects because there is a gap between production and then post-production. In that time, what I do is I sit and develop the titles, the title design. I develop all the look, the look for the film posters, any graphics that are required. So that is what I move on to. So that is what the creative design aspect includes.
So, what shaped your interest in this field, and when did you begin to get this clarity that you want to make your career in this field?
Honestly, it happened by chance. So when I finished my master's in landscape studies and I came back to India, the job market wasn't that great because that was not a very, very popular field, and it was known but not very common across the country. So while I was trying to apply for jobs, I got offered this role in Felis Creations to assist in productions and to assist in creatives because I had already worked here before as an illustrator. And I was a very organized, very systematic person. So I think that helped when I started assisting in productions. They realized how useful I could be. And so I grew in that role. And I think I just went with the flow, honestly, at that point in time. Um, it was a very natural fit because of how I am as a person. And I like things organized. I'm very good with numbers. So that really sort of, paved the road for me to become a full-time a senior production manager at Felis.
And you have been with Felis for like more than a decade now.
Just over a decade. I'm in my 11th year now. Yes.
That's fantastic. That's great to know. Interestingly, you did your graduation in environmental science.
My bachelor's, yes.
Yeah, your undergrad.
Yes, my undergrad was in environmental science. And the thing is, environmental science is a very expansive subject. It's got environmental chemistry, it's got, geosciences, it's got ecology. It's a whole lot of different sciences that come together. So in my master's, what I did is I took one branch of environmental science, that is the study of landscapes and urban development. And that is what landscape studies and landscape architecture focuses on. You basically design your external environment in an urban setting or, in a semi-urban setting, and how you try to use the natural landscape itself without destroying it. Because development doesn't always mean destruction. There are ways you can mitigate the effects that you have. So that is what landscape studies and landscape architecture was about.
So, you chose environmental science at a time when environmental science was not even known, like, barely people understood what it is, and it was definitely not a popular choice. Not many colleges were even offering environmental science as a branch to specialize in. What motivated this choice for you?
I was trying to escape maths. Well,
That's quite
that's
a candid
partly true.
response.
No, I mean, jokes apart, I wasn't very fond of maths, I'll be honest. But I think for me, I grew up in the outdoor world, in the natural world. My parents were very encouraging. Most of our holidays and weekends were spent out in the wilderness. So I think it was natural for me to feel a connection. And I started looking at what I wanted to do, when I was probably ninth and 10th. And at that time, my school, Vidyaniketan, they offered extracurricular subjects, and environmental science was one of them. So I had a head start. And given that my parents were very open, very encouraging, they did not, want me to pursue the same career paths that they saw other people pursuing. I was lucky and very fortunate to have that freedom to choose what I wanted. And they were very encouraging when I said I wanted to pick up environmental science. And so I picked it up in school. And then in college, it was available in some of the colleges. I studied in Mount Carmel, and it was available. And outside of India, it was already quite a popular field. In India, I think in 2000, when I picked it up, 2001, people were still focused on, their medicine, engineering fields. So
Correct.
numbers that took up the combination I took up were far lesser. But there were people, to be honest, there were quite a few people. We were a group of 45 to 50, which back then was a good enough number for
Yeah,
science.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, is there any eligibility criteria to get enrolled in a subject like or in a course like environmental science? Do you have any entrance exam, or is there an aptitude test, or you just need to, or do you need to pick up some particular subjects in 11th and 12th in order to have a chance to pursue environmental science?
I think with environmental science, in your, say, 11th and 12th, I don't think there is any entrance exams or any sort of eligibility criteria because they're still allowing people to explore what they want. Even for the bachelor's or the undergraduate level, there was not any entry requirements, except, of course, that you have not dropped science in your 11th and 12th. You have to stay with science.
So when you say science, what are the mandatory subjects?
Chemistry, biology. Physics is not mandatory in the undergraduate level, but up until your PUC or 11th and 12th,
Mhm.
you are encouraged to stick with the, major science subjects, that's physics, chemistry, biology.
And especially chemistry and biology.
Especially chemistry and biology, yes. And in the undergraduate level, your biology splits into two. It splits into zoology and botany. So you can have either one of those, and you need chemistry, and then
Mhm.
you can pick environmental science. And of
Very
course,
interesting.
in the master's level, you will need your pure science background.
So, what are some of the career prospects that a student can follow? You know, a sustainable, a fulfilling career prospect a student can explore after completing their undergrad in environmental science.
I think undergrad may not always be, completely sufficient when you're in a field like this, because it is a very, like I said, expansive field. You could become, um, if you take up your natural sciences, you could become a wildlife biologist, you could become an environmental chemist, you could become an environmental lawyer, you could become a climatologist. I mean, you could become an environmental engineer. So it depends on the specifics that you've picked up in your undergrad and in your master's, what subjects you picked and what you continued till the end. Now, environmental engineer, it's not enough for you to do just environmental science. So you need to, look at these careers and see what fits your interest, and then see which subjects are required for that. So you should have sort of a forethought. You can't just enter it one day and say, it has happened when I was studying landscape studies. There are many people who took up landscape studies and then they realized it was not landscape studies that they wanted, it was urban design, ecological urban design that they wanted. And luckily, a lot of universities in the master level give you that flexibility. When you realize you've done something, that you've taken something that you're not completely into, they allow you to switch your
Correct.
masters. But in your bachelor's or undergrad, I don't think that flexibility might be there for you, which is why I say an undergrad is not going to be enough to take you all the way. You may end up getting some of the lower level jobs. You could be an assistant, but perhaps to grow further in that field, you will need your master's. And if you're in the research field, then getting a PhD will also become crucial at one point of time.
So, how does a student educate themselves about various career pathways that an environmental science combined with a specific master's can take them to? You know, how does one educate and create an awareness around this particular choice of career?
So I think the best thing for the youngsters to do, young adults to do, is explore.
Mhm.
When you finish your 11th and 12th, start exploring internships. That is the best way for you to understand a particular field. Most internships may not be paid, but that is okay. At that age, you should be open to exploring these options. Attend workshops, attend talks, because there you'll realize how much of your interest actually lies there.
Correct.
Because we have a lot of interns coming in Felis as well, and they realize by the end of 3 months that, oh, maybe this is not what I actually wanted,
Yes.
if this is what the job entails. So
Yeah.
before you jump into your undergrad, before you jump into your postgrad,
Yeah.
you have to explore. And internships, workshops, seminars are the best way to do it. Whatever your interests are, try getting an internship, try attending a workshop, explore all of your interests. Your interests may be in science, robotics, and in music. So do all of them, explore all of them, because that is the age when you have the time, the energy, the bandwidth to explore. So before you especially choose your postgraduate, because that is perhaps one of the last chances you'll get to pivot, academically. So take a year off, explore, and then choose your master's. That is what I would strongly, strongly advise.
Yeah, that's a very, I would say, a very unconventional advice, but at the same time, I think it's a need of an hour because, a lot of parents still are averse to the gap year, but gap year can really do wonders in giving you that clarity that you are seeking for before you get into the masters. Because, like you so rightly said, you will perhaps will not get too much of a chance to swerve your career or pivot your career once
Yes.
you have chosen your field of specialization.
Yes, because I say this from personal experience. I did take up environmental science and then I swerved to one branch of it, that is ecological design. While I was very interested in it, I realized much later that perhaps I wanted to focus on marine biology instead. So my parents never forced me to, pick up masters immediately. But I had this, very stringent path, restrictive path that I'd laid out for myself. And because I did not take that time to explore my other interests, I sort of, what do you say, limited my own options. So it's always good to explore before you take that, final step towards your postgraduate.
And for the benefit of our audience, can you elaborate on the multiple branches under environmental science that one can look out for? Like, you mentioned so many. So, what are these? Because, see, this is still a very uncharted territory, I feel. So, what are different branches or different areas, under the environmental science that one can explore?
So like I said, ecology, that's one of the biggest branches. Of course, ecology is when you're studying living beings in terms with their habitat and environment. So ecology is one of the bigger branches of environmental science. Then there's environmental chemistry as well. And then there is the geosciences to do with the geological, aspects. And even in that, there will be many, many sub branches. So you have to, sort of deep dive into these individual, like even ecology, it could lead you down many different paths. It doesn't mean you have to end up being an ecologist. You could be a wildlife biologist after that. So apart from ecology, atmospheric sciences, environmental chemistry, there's environmental engineering, there is geology and the geosciences. And of course, there's also an aspect of the social sciences coming into it, because there is environmental law is very big right now with the level of awareness in people. We do need policy change. We do need laws that support, environmental protection. So that field is very big as well. So you could, do your legal studies along with environmental science. And I am
Very
sure
interesting.
by now there is also a separate course for those who wish to pursue environmental law as well.
So you are exposed to all of this during your undergrad years.
Not exactly.
Mhm.
We are mostly exposed to the strict environmental science. Like there's ecology, there's atmospheric sciences, a bit of geosciences.
Okay.
And I still feel at that time, our system wasn't open enough. Our education system wasn't very open enough to understand what different fields you can, diversify into. So now I think the systems are a lot more open with the internet and with, um, everything sort of opening up and
Yeah.
increase in chances of people being able to go abroad and study.
Yeah.
And a lot of colleges which have tie-ups, you do 1 year here and 2 years outside. All of those systems have changed this whole field up. So I think there's a lot more awareness now. And your best friend is the internet when it comes to this. to understand. And even when you talk to people, like when you're interning, you will meet people in similar fields, your seniors. Talking to such people is really going to give you a much wider idea than what you'll just learn from your course.
Yeah. In fact, you can spend a day on job with them to really understand,
Absolutely. A lot of mentorship programs as well. So,
hmm.
if you have now, if I am very keen on pursuing underwater photography, there are several people who offer mentorships. So I can work under one of them, until I get a grasp of all the technical aspects. So every field has that. This is why I said take that time off, intern, get a mentor, speak to people. There's no better way, than going out. If you just go to college and back home, you have restricted your, growth completely.
You are a creative designer and production manager at Felix, and you have worked on some prestigious projects like National Geographic Uncharted with Gordon Ramsay, the
Mhm.
India episode, as well as National Geographic Wildcats of India, which is a two-part series,
Yeah.
and also this Nilgiris, a shared wilderness in association with Rohini Nilekani Philanthropies. And I must acknowledge that this is really an extraordinary work.
Well, honestly, it's a big team. It's a big over here. And kudos to the people who bring in these projects, to the company. It's mostly our directors, it's our production head, our producers who bring in these projects. And we have the, opportunity to be part of such a team. And yes, a lot of our shows are airing on these channels. And we've also been a smaller part of other shows that come on Netflix and Apple. But the entire show is not us, but one aspect or one, sequence will be created by us.
You did your master's in landscape studies.
Mhm.
What are some of the alternate career pathways that one can take, after environmental science? Once you've done the undergrad, now you're moving towards your postgrad. You chose landscape studies. So first, my first question would be, what is Masters in Landscape Studies all about?
Mhm.
What does what this course entail? And the second question is, what are the other alternate courses that one can take apart from landscape studies in their postgrad if they want to stay in a similar domain?
If they want to stay in a similar domain, again, of course, the combination of your subjects will matter a lot, which is why I said first think of the career, and then the subjects you need to choose will become more clear.
Okay.
So when I picked up landscape architecture slash studies, it was more with an interest in ecological design. So landscape architecture is, like I briefly addressed before, it includes branches of, construction. It includes branches of ecology and aspects of design. It's a merging of these three subjects. Now, when you want to, take a plot of land and build something there, people initially just focused on the building. They did not think of how the rainwater flows. They did not perhaps think of, from where the wind comes. They did not think of how to keep the land, as untouched as possible. You would basically flatten it and you'd put your building up. Now, landscape architecture, which can be, very misunderstood for just gardening, it is not that.
Mhm.
We look at how the natural surrounding is around your building or around, a particular public space, and we design it in such a way that you encourage local trees to, be grown there. You encourage the harvesting of rainwater. You encourage, for example, urban wildlife to come and be part of that. And it's actually a very varied field. It could be focusing just on, the immediate surroundings around your building. It could be even something as simple as how to have a stairway from the open space to the closed space. There are particular ratios that you need to follow. It's not always like, let's just build steps. There's a particular ratio to follow. There are safety guidelines to, consider. There is accessibility issues to consider. So, designing a parking lot is landscape architecture. Designing a park is landscape architecture. Designing an entire, what do you say, botanical garden could be landscape architecture in association with several other fields like botany, for example. So landscape architecture itself is a very diverse field.
And what are some of the alternate career
After
pathways and
environmental
courses?
science,
Mhm.
but again, depending upon what you have dropped in your bachelor's or your undergrad, like I said, you could be an environmental lawyer, you could be a geologist, you could be an ecologist, you could be a wildlife biologist. Um, but of course, if you want to be a wildlife biologist, then you should have not dropped, zoology.
Mm.
So you will need that. So your undergrad subjects, the combination of what you've chosen to keep and drop will
Mhm.
affect what you need to do in the future.
Yeah.
If you want to do environmental engineering, for example, so you can, like I said, if you want to be an environmental engineer, you can't drop your physics. You have to drop your
Mm.
physics as well. So it depends on what you pick in your undergrad.
So it is very imperative to have this clarity as soon as you can, so that you can carve out a systematic, thought after career path for yourself by picking up the right degrees in undergrad as well as postgrad.
Your subjects in your undergrad will play a big role, especially
Hmm.
if you want to apply to colleges, universities outside of India.
Abroad. Hmm.
Because what you've done in your undergrad
Hmm.
really paves the way for what you can apply. If not, they will ask you to spend a year or
Hmm.
6 months to a year
Hmm.
um, catching up on those subjects. So you'll be, basically losing some time. But having
Hmm.
said that, I don't think it should be this clarity at that age shouldn't be forced upon anyone.
Hmm.
So my thing would be that if you're not clear,
Hmm.
to take some time off to explore all your interests, like I said before.
Yeah.
If not, up until your undergrad, do
Hmm.
a very generalized, combination of subjects. For
Hmm.
example, in my 11th and 12th,
Hmm.
even if I did not pick up environmental science and I did the very famous and popular PCMB,
Hmm.
which is physics,
But
chemistry,
I
math.
thought you detested maths.
Yes, but had I done that, I could
Hmm.
have still pivoted to environmental science later. So, what I'm saying is for people who don't have that clarity, do a more generalized course.
Hmm.
Choose a more generalized, combination of subjects, and
Hmm.
then you can always pivot.
Hmm.
Now, since I dropped physics and maths in my
Hmm.
undergrad,
Hmm.
in my postgrad, I couldn't go be, anything that needed physics.
Hmm.
So if you're not clear, my suggestion would be to keep all your main subjects until you get clarity.
Great. Now we'll move on to your another creative pursuit and
Mhm.
a rather daring one, which is you are a scuba and a free diver and an underwater photographer. So what? And you are also a PADI advanced open water diver. So what compelled you in getting into this kind of a certification and going with this daring endeavor? Did it come naturally to you, or was it an extension of you?
Well, to be honest, I was extremely afraid of fish and water. Like,
Wow, hard to believe.
so much so that when my brother said he was trying scuba diving during one of his trips, I was completely against it. I was like, I don't think you should risk yourself, you know. But at the same time, I have always been interested in the marine world. I think it was sort of a fear became fascination. And I think in 2016 is when I went with my family on an outing, and I realized that my little cousin was a champion. He was swimming up and down in the ocean, with the lifeguards. And I was like, if a kid can do it, I can do it. Unfortunately, I was in for a, very disappointing episode that day. I did not know how to manage the waves. I did not know how to manage, the currents. And I had a terrible experience. And then I came back to shore and I told myself, you cannot be this bad at something, especially something that has begun to, create this fascination in you. So that's when I decided to get certified for free diving, because I felt scuba was, there's just too many, things on you, too much of equipment. So I wanted to try free diving first. And then post COVID, I switched to scuba more than free diving. And yeah, I'm still honestly very new at this compared to a whole lot of my other, friends who I know now who've done thousands of dives. I am still very new, when you compare.
And what about underwater photography?
So I think that, see, my father had always encouraged me in photography. He gave me his old camera when I was 11 years old, and, very encouraging. He used to take us out to the forests and, for safaris. And I used to do photography then. And I completely lost touch with it until I saw the beauty of the world beneath the waves. And I said, I can't just look at it and go. I want to capture the moment. And that's when I went back to the camera, not the same camera, of course, it was no longer relevant, but um, I just decided, I started with a small GoPro, which I borrowed from Felis, my workplace. And then I realized I'm actually very interested in it. So after a couple of years of waiting and saving, I bought my own equipment for underwater photography. And now it's just become a part of who I am.
And does it also help you contribute uh, to Felis's work, in terms of their stock library or Felis films, etc.?
Absolutely. Because at Felis, we are very focused on our, wilderness on land. We've done a variety of ecosystems. We've done mountains, grasslands, deserts, forests, different types of ecosystems we've worked in. But the coastal and the marine aspect of it is still very unexplored in India. So I am one of the few in Felis who is certified as a diver, and I have a certain number of dives which allow me to go to different places. So yes, the footage that I bring back goes directly into our stock library. We have several clients who we provide that stock to. So yes, and especially because I dive more around India and Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is very well covered, but the our waters, like from Lakshadweep to Andamans, while there are many people who've taken pictures, there's not much footage of it. So yes, that's where the Felis gets a bit of an advantage because we have footage from, quite interesting.
You're quite an asset for Felis.
We'll see as we go.
um, what would you say, to someone who wants to explore this underwater photography or scuba and sea diver as a profession, if they literally want to deep dive into this offbeat career? Is it paying enough? Is it a lucrative offbeat career option to explore for Gen Zers?
Well, the thing is, you need to have passion and conviction.
And courage?
That will come once you're underwater and you see what a magical world that is. You have to, of course, be very respectful of the ocean, the currents, or your safety, no doubt about that. But it doesn't need courage. It just needs a level of maturity to, um, accept certain things and be there. And of course, you have to respect the marine world. You can't go touching corals, you can't go touching fish. And I know a lot of people do it. I know a lot of videos show that you're not going to do very well in that field if you're like that. You have to be very ethical about it.
Mm.
And for people who want to explore that world,
Mm.
it's very easy. You just have to sign up with one of our dive agencies, which now there are so many in India, very good ones. Please check the reviews, go sign up, do your basic course. Or if you're going on a holiday to a beach destination, find a good recommended dive shop. Do a discover dive. That is the first level, where they'll
Okay.
just put you in the water with all the equipment and give you a feel of it. If you
Mm.
like it,
Mm.
do your next level. And you can keep growing. The level I am is actually just one, two, three. There are many, many, many more levels that you can climb based on what you want to be in the future. Now, if you want to be a scientific diver, or if you want to be a dive instructor, do you want to be a commercial diver? There are many, many, many different, you know, um, variants of diving. So you will have to see what interests you and pursue that particular certification. Now, underwater photography is what interested me. There is no certification. I mean, there is a PADI certification for underwater photography, but that's really a very basic course. What you need to do is go for workshops. Again, mentorship becomes very important here. Go on dive trips which have a focus on photography. But before you pick up a camera, you must become a mature and stable diver first. Because when you're in the water, there are so many aspects that are very unnatural to you, right? Something as simple as maintaining buoyancy, something as simple as learning to read, your navigation compass. All of those things have to become second nature to you before you pick up a camera. Otherwise, trying to balance the camera and trying to balance yourself underwater might not, help you at all. So first, get your diving done and then pick up a camera.
It's very intriguing to know, which I was unaware of, that there are many variants to diving. Like you said, someone can become a scientific diver.
Yes, see, there are very, very different careers even in diving. And with regard to the pay,
Can you name few of these careers in diving, if you any top of the mind recalls?
yes, I mean, the most natural thing I've seen people, go towards is becoming a dive instructor.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or you can become a dive master where you guide groups on their dives. You can become a dive instructor where you can teach people, where you can certify people, or you can become a course director, a particular region's course director. So you have to ensure all your safety standards. You have to train other people. So those are to do with recreational diving. And while I have not explored much of the other side of diving, which is more commercial, scientific, technical diving, I have not explored much of it, but that is also a completely different world out there.
Okay.
I mean, there are people who are commercial divers. When I say scientific divers, they could
Mhm.
be researchers as well.
Mhm.
And if you're interested in marine biology, then diving is a very natural add-on. So it applies in many different places. And I myself am now intrigued to learn more about technical diving where you can go deeper. Because right now, your recreational certification gives you a certain limit. But if you want to go deeper, then you have to get your technical certifications. So, yeah, it's a wide world.
Yeah, it's a vast field in itself.
Yes.
Last but in no way the least, let's come to your own venture that you have nurtured and is called Muddy Water Miniature Gardens. What is that all about?
So that started after I got back from my master's. I realized that, landscape architecture, ecological design wasn't very much in demand here at the moment. A lot of my friends went to China and Dubai, where the job market was a lot more, active. But I decided to come back here because my family was here. And I started taking up smaller landscape projects. And while doing that, my mother started creating these miniature gardens, to add as an element in the landscapes that I design. And then I said, okay, we'll start that branch also. I'll do landscape design also. We'll do maintenance also. And then I realized, okay, we're just diversifying too much. And right now, what we need is to find a niche, a unique place where there is demand and focus on that. So I dropped all the other verticals and we just focused on this miniature gardens. So basically, what you do here is you take a large landscape, make a miniature replica out of it with all live plants. It's a very creative, venture where my mother has been doing it for about 40 years now, but she
Wow.
thought there was actually something called as miniature gardens. And especially now in today's world where Bangalore is going vertical, there's a lack of green space, especially for people living in smaller places without gardens in high rises. So this became a way for them to enjoy their little bit of greenery. And and it wasn't just a plant in a pot. My mom actually creates an entire landscape. She has different themes. It could be sitting under a tree theme. It could be a backyard garden theme. It could be a tribal garden. It could be a fairy garden. It could be a terrarium. So she creates stories out of this. So when people see that, they're very amused with it and they connect to it. And people have started taking these home, not just for themselves, but they use it as gifts. And they use it for their children to learn about nurturing, plants.
Respecting your valuable time, I'll just draw the curtain on our conversation. But before we end, any words of wisdom that you would like to share with our student community, and especially, how can one raise environment conscious generation?
That's a tough question. Well, any advice that I would leave with is, of course, like kept repeating, explore. Explore all your interests before you, restrict yourself onto a certain path. And another thing that I would say is if you realize you've made a wrong career choice or it does not interest you anymore, don't be fearful of pivoting. When I was studying my landscape architecture, my classmates were ranging from 20 to 60 years old. So please don't think you've lost out on life if you have picked the wrong course or if you want to redo a course. Always be ready to pivot. And apart from that, your last question was about how to raise environmentally conscious the next generation. Um, exposure, exposure to the natural world as much as possible, because once you are able to connect to something, only then you'll start to care about it. How are you going to make people care about the marine world if they've never put their head inside and seen the beauty of it? So I think getting them, exposing them to the beauty, to the threats of the world will sort of, push them to think more about it. And I think the way the world is going now, it's not a choice that you have to be environmentally conscious, it's mandatory.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's high time that we give it the attention that it deserves.
And you don't honestly need a degree to save the environment. Small things that you do in your daily life, small habits. A lot of people say, yes, that alone is not enough. But on an individual level, there is plenty that you can do to be a more conscious person on the planet.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I think it's a conscious choice that we all can make.
yes, what you eat, how you travel, where you travel, what you use as products in your daily life. Something as simple as reducing plastics, something as simple as, not letting the water run. All of these are small drops that can all come together in the end. So it's of no use if you are going to be a great environmental scientist, but then, you let the tap water run while you're brushing. So I
So
think
true.
our generation needs to be raised with a lot more conscious habits on how they use the resources around them. And that will
Would you say
automatically.
that your parents played a pivotal role in
Oh, yes.
shaping?
My father, especially, and my mother as well, they played a pivotal role in the way they brought us up. I don't think there's ever been a time I remember where I threw something on the road or whether, I pushed an animal or tried to chase one or whether um, anything that I did, they would make me think twice. Like if, a row of ants were going, even today, even unconsciously, I don't step on them. I jump over it and go. So, parents have a big role to play, teachers have a big role to play in helping children become more compassionate towards the environment. And I think from there, it'll just build up.
Thank you so much, Vydehi, for your valuable time. We greatly appreciate your time and expertise. I'm sure, this podcast will certainly help students, to make informed career choices, to be bold in exploring,
Mhm.
and to be bold in, kind of pivoting if the need be, and, not get, not just go by the conventional norms, and break the barriers, or as we say, shatter the glass ceiling if there's a need to.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Vydehi, again for making yourself available for this podcast today.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
You are listening to No Herd Mentality Conversations. Please subscribe to our channel for more such in-depth conversations on different careers and professions. I'm Ruchika, signing off on behalf of No Herd Mentality.